Dear all, welcome to the class of International Economics. So today we are moving to the last part of our fifth module and making a presentation on IMF and World Bank role and functions. As all of you know, IMF and World Bank are two important international organizations which promotes economic cooperation among the countries and also assist the countries to fight against development issues like poverty. So firstly we can talk about IMF. IMF is an international financial institution. What is IMF? IMF is International Monetary Fund. International Monetary Fund is a financial institution and it is also known as, shortly we can call it as the fund. And the idea of IMF was conceived at a UN conference in Bretton Woods at New Hampshire in US in 1944. So after the Second World War, 44 countries at the conference in Bretton Woods conference decided to build a framework for economic cooperation to avoid a repetition of competitive devaluation that had contributed to the Great Depression of 1930s. So after the Great Depression and also Second World War, the countries started thinking about more cooperation among the countries. So the both of these organizations, IMF and also World Bank, was the part of this thinking, and they have established Bretton Woods twins. The twins means IMF and World Bank. So both of these organizations born after this Second World War. And the IMF has played a part in shaping the global economy since the end of the World War II. Then IMF established in 1945 December 27th and started functioning on March 1947, and headquarters is in Washington DC, United States. And there are 190 members in IMF. Andorra is the last member. They have joined 16th October 2020, very recently. And managing director is Kristalina Georgieva. She is an American economist and chief economist or economic counselor and research department director. That is Geeta Gopinath. She is an Indian American economist. So she is basically her origin is from India and parents also from Kannur, Kerala. And her studies were from Delhi University. The photos also given here, and she is. We are proud to say that she is a chief economist in IMF. Then there are so many publications for IMF. The two major publications, it is World Economic Outlook, which compiled the various data from all the countries, and also Global Financial Stability Report also. So the apex body of IMF is the Board of Governors from the member countries, and there is an executive board constituted by the 21 members, and it is also another decision making organ of IMF. So the structure of IMF is given here. So you can see there are 190 member countries. Then there is Board of Governors from these member countries. Then there is an executive board, as we say 21 members for this executive board. Then above this executive board there is a IMF managing directors, the first deputy managing director, then deputy managing director, and another deputy managing director. So these are the structure of IMF. And IMF works through the quota system, and quota is assigned. It is a contribution from all the member countries basically. So quota is assigned to each countries based on their GDP and other macro indicators. So the bigger countries or developed countries should contribute to the IMF more. And 25% of the contribution to the quota can be given in foreign currency or gold. The rest of 75% of the currency can be given in the domestic currency of each members. So the quotas are denominated in SDR. This quota is denominated in SDR. SDR is special drawing rights. What is this SDR? SDR is IMF's unit of account and currency. It is a currency of IMF. IMF making all the transactions in SDR. And the value of this currency is decided based on firstly it was decided based on dollars value, but later on it was decided based on basket of currencies, and the basket of currencies were continuously changed, and later in the final stage and even renminbi of Chinese were included in the basket, and it was decided on the weighted average of all these currencies, 5 currencies that are US dollar, European euros, Chinese renminbi, then Japanese yen, then British pound. So this, according to these currencies, the SDR will be decided. Okay, so this is the working of IMF, because all the countries will contribute to the quota, and the IMF will extend the loans and advances from this SDR or from this quota system. So what are the objectives of IMF? So firstly, to promote the international monetary cooperation. So cooperation among the member countries is the major or the key objective of IMF. Secondly, to ensure a balanced international trade. Thirdly, to ensure exchange rate stability. So if there is any problem in exchange rate, so IMF also will involve in that. Then fourthly, to eliminate or to minimize exchange restrictions by promoting the system of multilateral payments, and to promote more multilateral payments without any restriction on exchange. So that is another objective. Then to grant economic assistance to member countries for eliminating the adverse balance of payment. So this is also another key objective of IMF. If some country is facing some problem of balance of payment, they can approach IMF, and IMF will extend their help. Then finally, to minimize the imbalance in quantum and duration of international trade. So if there is an imbalance in that, IMF will try to reduce it and promote international trade, free international trade among the member countries. So these are the objectives of IMF. And now what are the functions of IMF? What IMF do among these countries? Firstly, they have a surveillance in many aspects. Secondly, lending. Then thirdly, technical assistance. So surveillance, lending and technical assistance are 3 important functions of IMF. So if you are talking about the surveillance, IMF will regularly monitor the economic and financial policies of the member countries and also advises them, and encouraging the policies that foster the economic stability and reduce vulnerability. So if they want any advice, IMF also give that advice. Finally, they publish the different reports. So through all these activities, they make a surveillance on all these member countries. Then secondly, lending to the countries with balance of payment difficulties. So they IMF gives a short-term loans to them. Then financial assistance to the member countries to meet the international payments. So if some countries is facing problems for international payments, so IMF also help them. Then finally, technical assistance in various fields such as monetary and exchange rate policies, banking and financial system supervision. All these assistance will be given by IMF Finally, to assist mainly low and middle income countries in effectively managing their economies. So if the countries have some problem in managing all these activities, so technical assistance also will be given by IMF. So these all are the functions and also the objectives of IMF. So even though IMF has so many good objectives and good functions and it works properly, but still there are some criticism from different economists. Firstly, the major criticism is IMF has a one size fits all mentality, and they are considering all the countries equally and advises them to adopt the same policy. But problem is that all the countries will have heterogeneous economic nature, and there will be differences in many aspects. But without considering these differences, IMF has a one size fits all mentality. So this is the first criticism. Secondly, IMF does not adequately monitor the impact of its decision on the poor. Even though the IMF is giving loans to them, but does not monitor properly. That is another limitation or criticism. Then some US critics also says IMF is incredibly wasteful, that takes valuable fund and pour it down the drain of developing economies. Actually, their criticism is IMF is giving loans to the poor countries, but these poor countries are not utilizing these funds properly. Totally this IMF is a wasteful organization. That is some people have criticized. Then finally, IMF has no effective authority over the domestic economic policy of its members. So this is also another criticism. So now we can come to the second international organizations, that is World Bank. So when we are talking about the World Bank, we may think that it is a one institution or one organization. It is not absolute. It is not a single organization, but it is a combination or the group of few organizations. Firstly, International Bank for Reconstruction and Development, IBRD, and its associate institutions as a group is known as or are known as the World Bank. So IBRD is the one institution, and there are some other institutions or organizations. By combining this all institution as a group is known as World Bank. So after the Second World War, there was several countries who were damaged, and multilateral trade was dislocated, and it was caused for massive destruction and also poverty in many countries. So this was a situation when IBRD or International Bank for Reconstruction and Development was born along with IMF at the same period. Okay, that's why it is known as twins. Okay, so IBRD in December 1945 and started functioning in 1946 in June, and the president of World Bank is David Malpass, and the photo also given here. Then the managing director, one director is Anshula Kant, and there are some other managing directors also. She is also from India, and her studies also has done from Delhi University, and we are also proud to say that she is the managing director. Then there are objectives. What are the objectives of World Bank? Firstly, to provide a long run capital to the member countries for economic reconstruction and development. Okay, so as we said, after the Second World War, most of the countries were completely collapsed. So for their reconstruction purpose and also for their development purpose, give the long run capital or the long run finance was the main aim of World Bank, specifically for the following purpose. Firstly, to rehabilitate the war-ruined economies. Secondly, to finance productive effort according to the peacetime requirements. Thirdly, to develop resources and production facilities in underdeveloped countries. So these were the major aim. Secondly, to induce long-run capital investment for assuring BOP equilibrium and development of trade. I mean, IMF were giving short-run capital or investment for the BOP equilibrium, but here long-run capital investment for assuring BOP equilibrium and development of trade. Thirdly, promoting capital investment to provide guarantee on private loans, and if private capital is not available, then IBRD will provide it. Fourthly, to provide guarantee for loans granted for small and large units of member countries. So they were giving the guarantee for them and ensuring the implementation of the projects. Okay, so these all are the major aims or objectives of World Bank. So World Bank, as we said, it is a combination or the group of 5 institutions. Then firstly, IBRD, International Bank for Reconstruction and Development, International Development Association, IDA, the International Finance Corporation, IFC, then Multilateral Investment Guarantee Agency, MIGA or MIGA, then finally International Center for Settlement of Investment Disputes. So these all are the 5 organizations under World Bank. So the World Bank group, we can discuss the objective of each institution. Firstly, the International Bank for Reconstruction and Development. It is came to existence in 27th of 1945. There are 190 members in IBRD. So the major aim of IBRD was to finance reconstruction for nations devastated by the World War, as we said. Okay, in the name itself it is there because it is a bank for reconstruction and development. So the mission expanded to fight poverty, economic growth of the developing countries later. The first objectives was satisfied and it was fulfilled, but later on their mission was expanded to several other development issues. Then loans to the government and public enterprises. So government and public enterprises, giving loans to them is the major aim of first IBRD. Then secondly, International Finance Corporation or IFC. It was started in July 1956 and there is 184 members in this organization. So it is a private sector financing arm of the World Bank. So it gives the finance to the private sector, especially to the developing countries, to eradicate the poverty and also to raise the standard of living. So IFC is the largest multilateral source of loan equity finance for private sector project in developing countries. And recently, that masala bond, you might have heard this word. Okay, IFC recently introduced a rupee denoted offshore bond that is known as IFC masala bond. It is denoted in Indian rupee. Okay, so this is all about the second. So this is a brief idea about the second organization. Thirdly, International Development Association or IDA. Okay, it was started in September 24 of 1960 and there are 173 members. Then it is an UN specialized agency for providing long-term interest-free loans to the poorest developing countries. So that's why it is known as soft loan window of World Bank. So this organization IDA is known as soft loan window. Normally they are giving the loans for 30 years. You should understand that they are giving interest-free loans to the poorest developing economies. That's why they are known as soft loan window. That is also for a very long period, 30 years. So India had been the highest beneficiary of IDA support. So That is also one important fact. Then fourthly, International Center for Settlement of Investment Dispute, ICSID. So this organization came to being in 1966, October 14th. There are 159 members. So the settlement of disputes is the important aim among the member countries, is the important aim of this organization, and India is not member of this organization. Okay, then finally fifth one, it is Multilateral Investment Guarantee Agency, MIGA. Okay, April 12th of 1988, the main aim was to promote FDI in developing countries and also mediating in disputes between the investors and government. So, and also giving the guarantee for investment. So this is these all are the aims of Multilateral Investment Guarantee Agency. So if we are talking about the World Bank, so World Bank is the consists of these 5 organizations or institutions. So but even though it works properly and it gives loans and help to so many developing countries and also help to fight poverty, but there are some criticism. Firstly, started to reduce poverty. I mean they have already started to reduce poverty, but it support US business interest. That is one criticism. Then the president of bank is always a citizen of US, so they have more veto power in this organization. Then lack of transparency to the external publics. Then used as instrument for the promotion of US or Western interests. So they are promoting the Western interest and ideology. That is another issue or criticism. Then the decision making structure is undemocratic, because most of the industrialized countries and US and also some European countries has more veto power. So the decision making is undemocratic. Then finally it has consistently pushed a neoliberal agenda. So if some country wants loans, so all these countries should adopt the reforms which was advised by the World Bank and IMF. So through this way they are promoting or they are compelling other countries to follow the neoliberal agenda. That is also another biggest criticism against World Bank. So if we are briefly make a comparison between IMF and World Bank, we can say that both are Bretton Woods twins, that is no doubt. So the key objective is the promotion of international economic cooperation, but the difference is World Bank provides long-term loans to promoting balanced economic development, but IMF provides short-term loans for eliminating BOP disequilibrium. So World Bank long-term loans for economic development, and here IMF provides short-term loans for eliminating BOP disequilibrium. So these are the major differences between them. So for these references, you can refer KC Rana and Verma, and also you can go through the official website of IMF and World Bank. Thank you very much. Thank you all.